Good morning, everybody. Hello, and welcome to our Q&A this morning. I'm Katrina, and I'm the course leader for Musicians of Change, now in its fourth year. And we just really wanted to put this together so that you would have a bit of a chance to meet us, the team, myself and Steph, the program manager, some of our current students, graduate, and Kate from Tameside Music Service. So you'll get a chance this morning to hear from us. We'll be talking. I'll be talking with Kate, head of Tameside Music and Library Services, about her experiences putting the staff through the course, the programme, and then later from Peter, one of our graduates, and our current student Matt on the programme as well. And then we'll be opening up the floor for questions from about 10:45. But do also put questions in the chat if they come up, and we'll answer those at 10:45 as well. Just to let you know that this session will be recorded, and kind of made available for others to watch back on our website. So if you don't want to be on camera, do feel free to turn your camera off. And I think that's everything. So what I'm going to do now is just hand over first to Peter and Matt to introduce themselves, and then Kate, and then we'll get into the Q&A. So Peter, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Hi, I'm Peter. I was a graduate of the 2020-2021 cohort. I'm a cellist and I work in Manchester. And I think that's kind of it. I kind of run my own program, but for quite a while I was working at the InHarmony program at Opera North, and I do a bit of playing in their orchestra still, and I'm in contact with that organization quite a lot. But yeah, I work quite a bit with children and adults here in Manchester. So that's a little bit about me.
Hi, I'm Matt. I'm in rainy Brighton, which is why it sounds like, well, Steph accused me of being at the seaside, which I'm only vaguely at. It's actually raining here. I'm brass player and first of the non-string intake, I think, being this year's student. I think that's right. There's a few more people that blow things now. And I'm currently worrying slightly about assignment 3, but we'll talk about that later. What else? I think that's everything. Oh yeah, work in Brighton, do like group teaching, individual teaching, running a lot of bands and stuff like that. Also a bit of a jazzer. That's all, I think.
Fantastic. Kate, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm Kate Campbell Green, and I'm the head of Tameside Music Service. My musical background is a bit varied. The last thing that I did was an album that was released in January, and so I was doing a mixture of vocals and all of that kind of stuff. It was a collaboration on books, actually. So so that was pretty fun. But I was classically trained, went to the Royal Northern a long time ago, while it was half the size that it is now. So it's been, kind of a blend of both for me experientially, and that's something that I'm very passionate about within music services, that it's equitable and reflective of the current musical landscape. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Wonderful. So Kate, I know that you have got 3 of your staff on the course this year. And I guess my first question to you really is why investing in your staff by supporting them to do the PGCI course was really important to you as a senior leader.
So these 3 particular members of staff, they're exemplary teachers and have been for a number of years. I think they had all got to the point where they needed to look at their own teaching in a kind of symbol to the sound, if you see what I mean, using a common approach analogy. So they could do it really, really well. What was missing for them was that they kind of wanted to know the mechanisms of that. They wanted to understand the pedagogies. They wanted to get more of a kind of working understanding of assessment and why that's important. So all of the kind of functions of it. And also, I think, because by our very nature, we're nomads as peripatetic teachers, having a network, and a network that's outside of your locality, it's absolutely, it's gold, isn't it? Having that. So for them, giving them both of those opportunities, having that perspective and being a little bit more broad-minded about all of these different teaching perspectives around the country, has just given them so much knowledge, which then it kind of drifts along the company, because we are very we're keen to sort of mine all of their knowledge really and their experiences. So that was kind of the initial part of it. The other thing as well really is it comes down to good old-fashioned CPD. I do like an inset day and I do like a twilight session, but there is nothing like continual professional learning for me. So having something that is sustained throughout the year, especially with these three lads, the way that they work together now is completely changed. The professional conversations that they have are next level now, where whenever I see them together, I'm like, oh, can I come and join you? Because I know that I'm going to be benefiting from it as well. So
That's fantastic to hear, and that was kind of my second question. Really, was just how you've seen it impact the rest of your team, and it's lovely to hear that you feel like even with all your experience, there's still more that you want to gain. Have you noticed the way that they work with the rest of your wider instrumental team changing?
Yes, definitely. I think part of it is, that it can't not affect them as professionals. But I think one of the things that I've seen with them personally as well is that confidence, that sense of ownership of what they do. Because sometimes the nature of the job is that it owns you, it's directing you to, this school needs that, so I'm going to go and provide it. Whereas with this, there is an element now of being an advisor and an advocate for good quality music education, and what that looks like, and how it is for you, but then also how it should be within your locality, etc., etc. So it's a lot more cohesive than it used to be. And that, like I said before, that sort of trickle down effect, it's like a big bomb going off in a way, because you get that, the kind of radius of it, so everybody's affected by it. And that kind of infectious enthusiasm and knowledge that they have to go with that, everyone wants part of it. They within the organization, to the point was like, oh, can they do an inset day, because that sounds really good. We have those conversations in the office, and they are, by their very nature, very, very short, and you're just vomiting words at each other to try and try and cram it into that 5 minutes you've got before you've got your next lesson. So there is kind of looking at them as leaders within the organization as well. And again, it's something that I think is important to look at all of the workforce as having those leadership skills, because each and every one of us is important in the way that the service runs. And for these three, it's kind of stepped them up to a point where now they are able to sort of say, well, we've been doing it like this, it makes no sense, we should be doing it like this, and here is why. And that why is super important for all of us, especially for me as a leader. I need to know this, and having all of those experiences that they've gained, and then all of the knowledge that they've got, which is all current as well, because I did my PGCE a long time ago now. Lots changed in education in the last 15 years. So for me, having that experience from them, it's absolutely, it's so intrinsic to the strategy of and the direction of the service, going forward, and not just now, but then also kind of looking at it in years to come as well, and in the current educational climate, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do tell me to stop, Katrina, if I'm waffling. I do have a tendency.
No, it's fantastic to hear your perspective, and I think that point that you make about them, as leaders, all music teachers are leaders in a sense.
Absolutely.
That they're all responsible, and particularly as we delve deeper into our understanding of what inclusion means and things like that, and and trying to be as diverse and inclusive as possible in our practices, music teachers really need to be leaders in that area and have that confidence, and not just be responding but to what they're being asked to do, but actually really leading the way. And it's fantastic to hear that you're starting to see that within your team. So I guess I'm just wondering, have you noticed with kind of some of the schools that you work with and the kind of relationships that you have with the communities, how they've maybe been impacted by your 3 team members?
Yes, absolutely. It's been a sea change, really, because like I said before, there is a tendency from schools for it to be a very transactional relationship. That's changed, certainly in their schools. And then obviously word gets around, doesn't it, that actually they know what they're talking about. So I think because in those particular schools that they've been working in, they have seen all of these different changes in practice, because it is very much you experience it, you talk about it, you understand the theory of it, and then you go and do it, and then it becomes embedded in that school, in your practice. So looking at John, for example, he works in 4 different schools, and so the school where he's put in the most practice, which has been relevant to the course, that's great. Obviously, there's a very direct impact there, but it's changed his working practice, it's changed his pedagogy, it's changed his idea, and it's changed the way that he thinks about teaching and students. So that is something that's impacted all of his schools, and his schools are looking to him as an advisor, and that's for all of our current students on the course as well. They all are invested in a completely different way than you're used to, and that's something that kind of steps up, doesn't it? So that schools really take notice of that when you start acting like a leader and a specialist, and you feel that sense of ownership of, oh no, I've got this, and that's something that I can bring to the school life, to the point where the school have sent me direct emails just saying how fantastic they are. It's like, yeah, I know. I know they're amazing. They're amazing anyway. But now it's just like, oh my gosh, they're just like next level, like I said before. So it's not just the feedback, which is always great to hear, isn't it? It's always great to get positive feedback that somebody thinks you're great. But then it's also looking at how that has affected the region, because all of our schools obviously are in wards, and they all meet together in their little ward groups or in their little area groups, and they talk about music. That's one of the things that they do talk about every now and again. And rather than looking at the music service as being a thing, and it's either you're for the music service, you're against it, there is this realization that we are an organization of like-minded people who all want to have quality music education opportunities in the borough. And this is partly, especially for those 3, I've seen it in a completely different way in terms of how those heads, speak to me in primary heads briefings. There is that sort of like, oh, John's on your team. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. He's so good. And the thing with it's the same with all 3 lads as well. They're sort of singled out in a way that is just, because they can't help but talk about the effect that they've had on the students. It's been so positive in a lot of ways. It's like, it's a really nice lesson. My personal hatred, of that phrase. Yeah, it's been a really nice time. Oh, has it? Great, excellent. I'll do karaoke next time. That'll be equally nice. They're getting so much out of it, which is valuable, and they can see that it's not necessarily music for music's sake. It's also looking at music as a conduit. It's looking at it as a catalyst for other elements. It's a cohesive classroom environment. All of those things come together, and for just a fantastic experience for those, each and every one of those students. There's no student left behind.
Yeah, and that's reminded me. I know that a couple of your staff did kind of deep dives for their presentations on things like behaviour management, and got really passionate about that. And I think being able to have that shared language with schools around like you say, the kind of current the current issues and ideas around the best ways to work with children with all different types of needs and things like that. And it's about them, the school having the confidence that their music staff know exactly what those things are, and they're shared and they're in it together and they're a team.
That's right, because sometimes it is one of those things where, I feel marginalised sometimes. As a music educator, they just see the word music and they don't really think of you as being an educator. And that's something that we've worked very hard at, because we are a teaching and learning organisation. We're passionate about teaching. We love it. We enjoy learning ourselves. We have that kind of lifelong learning ambition, all of us. So to be recognised by schools as being educators and them being our peers rather than us being their underlings, where we'll come in and do a few chords and then ship on out, it does change the way that we can work together and collaborate together in a more meaningful way.
Yeah, that's something that's, I think, so important, and particularly important in the kind of current post-pandemic climate. Definitely. So just thinking a little bit more about your staff and kind of thinking about things like, I know that there's been quite an exodus from the music teaching profession, and yeah, how do you see the course kind of impacting retention in your service and recruitment?
Yeah, so there's a sense of investment, which I'm not saying it wasn't there before. It is, especially where we are. It's a bit of an underdog. We're the 15th, I think, most deprived area in the country. So these children, they really do get under your skin, and you want to do your best for them. You want to give them your possible best. So that sense of investment is already there, given the circumstances. But the sense of investment for these staff has changed again, to the point where they want to impact the way that we do things, rather than just on a personal level. It's on a kind of a hive mind, really. So they want to ensure that we're all pulling in the same direction and have all of the understanding that we need and knowledge and experience to be able to do that. So they're at a point now where they are not just very willing, but very ready to share all of these ideas. And everybody wants to know, because everybody's been aware that they have been undertaking their PGCEI, and whenever they've spoken about it, it's a light going on, because they are so passionate about what they've learned, and it's infectious. You have that sort of, oh wow, tell me more about it, like I was mentioning earlier on. So I think there's also a sense of once people come into the organisation, they see that, because we have had some new recruits recently. They go, oh right, well this is an organisation that I want to be a part of, because I'll be invested in. I'm a big succession planner. I'm not going to be there forever. I'm not. So it's so important that other people are constantly getting the experience of leadership, so that anybody could take it over. Because that's, for me, I think, what shows that there is a very strong and sustainable service there, which is going to be meeting the needs of the students, regardless of who is sitting in the chair and getting the most of the tellings off from people. That's basically what I do every day. No, I'm joking, but I don't get many of those. It's but I think, as a looking at it from the retention point of view, obviously you have that dimension where those that are coming into the organisation want to stay, because they see that it's something where they will get training opportunities, they will get time off timetable for something that is intrinsic to their professional learning or practice. But then also they want to be around us, they want to be around the people there, because not just that they're a great team. If Carlsberg did workplaces, I think ours would probably be it, because they're just absolutely brilliant people to work with. But a large part of that is because of how they feel about what they do. And how they feel about what they do is because what they know, what they've experienced. And so being around like-minded people like that, who are pulling in the same direction in a hive mind kind of way, I was thinking that too. And just constantly trying to drive things forward and move things forward. They don't want to go anywhere else. They'll stay because of the team that they're with and the investment that they have, and the freedom and autonomy that they have to, I'm going to go and do this, and then I'm going to tell everyone about it, and we can embed it within our practice. It's an exciting, progressive kind of approach to learning for ourselves, so that we're not going to get bored and we're not going to be complacent and be like, oh yeah, I've been teaching this song for 20 years now and it's always a good one. It's not like that. Like, let me just blow the dust off my planning. It's not like that at all. It is just constantly sort of evolving and working together in a sort of joint evolution, I guess.
Yeah, it sounds like you've created a real agency within your team for them to really have a stake in the direction of the service, and that's just so motivating. Yeah, and just you mentioned the opportunities you've given them to be off timetable and things like that, and build in opportunities for observation and things like that. So could you just talk a little bit about those kind of practical things that you've built in to help them do the course?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So they've had study time during the week, so we've taken them off timetable so that they can especially things like academic reading. I love reading articles. I'm a total nerd when it comes to the academic research side of things. And part of that is, I really recognise the benefits, and I learned this on my PGCE, the benefits in being up to date with current research, and even just some of those little ideas that you get when you're reading through, oh, they've done that, that sounds great, we could try that, that would work in that school, or, for that student. So, giving them the time to actually read through something and just assimilate this knowledge and allow it to kind of sit, and for them to use that then to not just in their own practice, but again, as a service. Can we try this? Can we try that? It's like, yeah, you can. For us, we're lucky in a way that it's fairly low risk, really, isn't it? If you try something new, the chances are you're not going to set a child on fire. It might just not work very well, and you'll have to revisit it in the next lesson. So, having that kind of sense of we can just go and have a go. With all of the things that they're learning, it does give you that sense of, right, okay, well, mistakes might be made, but that's all right. I mean, that's part of learning, isn't it? The amount of times we get our kids to do that every day and tell them it's okay. We have to have that same attitude for ourselves to an extent. I do think I have gone on a tangent here, Katrina, as I am wont to do. So you might have to pull me back a minute.
No, yeah, it was just those kind of like you said, those practicalities, that time, I guess, out of their schedule to go out and do observations of other teachers.
Yes,
I know
so
that's it. And things, yeah.
Yeah, so that, I mean, there has been some investment, financial investment in terms of what we can do, but to be honest, it's not been huge amounts. Some of it has just been, right, well, you might have to do a double lesson, or somebody else will have to cover for you. But more often than not, if we give the schools enough kind of time, and they've had enough sessions, because we have a certain amount of sessions that they have every year, the chances are they've got about 2 or 3 sessions in a year that they can duck out of anyway, especially if it's like a whole, they are all contracted, Jennifer, in answer to your question. Then it means that there is that flexibility of going, well, you can go on that particular day. I actually find it really good to cover some of their teaching myself as well. It keeps my hand in, and it also means that I get to see all. I mean, I just want to get out to as many schools as I can. So sometimes going to cover it myself, or getting one of the other senior leaders, or I will go in with a new member of staff to give them some, what's the word? Some more experience, some breadth of experience. This is what it looks like when you've got a class with all of these routines embedded, as opposed to one that you're just starting with. So I've just got a couple of questions. Everyone's self-employed, they made everyone redundant, sadly. And I'm so sorry to hear that, Karen. That is really difficult, isn't it? Yeah. So the self-employed model is slightly different, isn't it? I know, because Dave Little, who is in Wigan, I know that it's slightly different for him. So there are lots of suggestions that you can make, and there are lots of kind of training opportunities that you can offer. However, it is not as free and easy as it is working with contracted staff. I appreciate that. However, I think one of the great things that I'll write with your music hub on Flexi, right? Yeah. How does that work for you then, Matt?
Well, yeah, I don't know whether you would call that employed or sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just thought it might be
That's
a
good.
point of reference that like quite a few people on the course are like quite a random like hybrid of employment statuses. So yeah, for me, I'm like, I mean, I work for the Music Hub. They pay me like on a monthly through my claims, but I'm not like employed, and I don't feel very employed. It's just that they pay me through that, and I get PAYE sort of. But yeah, it's flexi is what they used to call it. I don't know if they call it that now anyway.
Mm. Yeah, it is a really tricky situation that we're in music hubs, because it is so disparate, isn't it? In terms of what contract or not contract you're on. For us, it's contracted staff and casual staff. That's basically what we have, and I don't think the LA will ever go away from that model either. Which, I mean, it swings and roundabouts, isn't it? There are benefits to having that, and I think certainly I can see the benefits for the staff being contracted as opposed to being self-employed. Paid in addition for the launch week weekends and any additional weekends. What about planning and research time? They're not paid in addition for the weekends or launch week, but the launch week, when was that? Was that during term time?
It's the last week of August, actually.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. So, well, they're paid throughout the year. These particular members of staff, they're not actually on teachers' pay scale, so we just kind of release them for that week, if you see what I mean. So that, yeah, they are paid basically. And what was the other thing? Planning and research time. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I've done this year is given them at least half a day where they are completely off timetable, and occasionally it'll be more than that as well. We also have kind of admin or red weeks during the year as well. So, for example, our primary schools still have a historic 2-week timetable. Yeah. Oh, that's really nice to hear. I'm not very good at compliments, Matt, actually, but yeah, I mean, I usually just deflect them with the same old saying, which is, it's everyone, that we are the sum of our parts. So I'm not running it really.
Take someone to acknowledge that though, huh? Again.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Kate, and yes, totally echo everything there in the chat. So I think we'll move on now to talking with Matt and Peter a little bit more about the student and graduate experience of the program.
Yes, I will take it away. Obviously, Kate will be able to expand on any of the questions you might have at the end, the last sort of 15 minutes. But yeah, Kate, I love hearing you speak. Fills me with so much energy about what we can all do with an effective model. But yeah, moving over to the kind of other side of it now. Obviously, Peter is one of our graduates, so he's gone through the whole program. Matt is still doing the course at present, as he mentioned, with his assignment. So Peter, having come out the other side, been all the way through the experience, what do you feel is the biggest difference between doing our programme and doing, say, a master's at another university, or perhaps a course with a different training provider?
Yeah, I actually, off the back of this course, I took a few more CPD courses. I just kind of couldn't get enough of it. And I think the main difference for me was actually what I was used to was kind of these courses that are very, very kind of instrument specific, very kind of focused around the playing of the instrument, but not actually the broader kind of teaching aspects that Kate was kind of mentioning. This course is really, it makes you question your values as a teacher, and really gets you thinking about the big things, like, why you're doing this, and all of those interpersonal things as well, with, how much of your teaching is student led and how much of it is you kind of dictating to to your students. And yeah, I think when I first came to it, I kind of expected this very kind of narrow, and even I think probably a lot of my peers on the course were expecting this kind of very narrow approach of, just talking about instruments or just talking about music. And actually it's really broad, and it does kind of put you, like Kate said, it puts you kind of on the same level as the people that you're working with in schools. That's kind of, I really that really registered with me. I felt like I could really relate to that feeling of you come back in and into the school environment, and you're like, oh, I really know what's going on here. I feel, like I'm kind of on an equal footing there, and I can kind of be a more active player in the school environment, because I've had this training. I've had this kind of broader educational training, and really asked those big questions that have given me that confidence to go back into that setting.
Amazing. And would you say you kind of noticed a significant change in your relationships with the stakeholders you were working with kind of during and after the course?
Absolutely. Yeah. I felt like I was able to work with them so much more effectively. I suppose I just had a lot more confidence from watching other really good teachers as well, the observations I did through the course. And also just, I guess because I had that kind of backing of, this is what I want, this is what's important for my lessons. And then I'm able to kind of just change those relationships with my stakeholders to a more productive one.
Brilliant. So Matt, obviously, as you said, you're kind of more in the thick of it and involved in the nitty gritty right now. So can you tell us about one of the modules that you've done so far that's particularly inspired you or influenced you or kind of had a notable impact on your teaching and your students?
Yeah, I think definitely all of it. And one of the other things I just wanted to pick up on what Peter said, of watching other people, both like hearing them speak on the Zooms, like other people doing the course, sharing experiences and things that they say, that and attitudes that they have and things that they've learned from what we're doing that are really inspiring. But also in terms of relationships, like that the stakeholder thing, like going in to see the music masters, like the teaching in those schools, and the how music is and how it's seen and viewed in there, and how like it is part of like the music master's teaching is all part of the school, and everyone knows everyone, and that's like that. I think that's one of the most amazing things I've seen. But in terms of the modules, like it was definitely the expert to educator, like the first one. It just like so many things to think about that I'd never thought about, and that was kind of the whole reason I signed up for the course, was because I knew that I didn't know what I didn't know, sort of thing. And there's a lot of like academic stuff, but more than that, it's both Peter and Kate both said it. I don't know if they realized they were saying, but it's the why, like that module particularly. I mean, the whole course, like including the observations and everything. But it's just the big thing of why, like why are we doing this, who are we doing this for, what are we doing, and why are we doing it, sort of thing. And that was really cool to hear you say about keeping it relevant, Kate, as well. Like, to them now, them are students, and that's like really a mentality of the whole of Music Masters, I think. But I think every module is helping me to, in answer to your question, more specifically stuff like to rethink that way.
Good. Sorry, I'm aware there are questions popping in the chat at the minute. Jen, like you say, if it's okay if we pop them at the end of me having a little chat with the students, then we can kind of go through the various questions you have, if that's all right, if you're okay to stay until that bit. If not, let me know and we'll kind of dive into questions a little bit and then come back to students. But Matt, I wanted to pick up on what you were saying there about it kind of opening to your eyes to maybe what you didn't know. Has it specifically affected your perceptions of what the possibilities can be with group teaching, like in a practical way?
Yeah, and I think that it just, in a way, it destroys everything first. And you're like, oh, hang on, I can't just keep doing these things that I've always done, because I've got to rethink. And again, that comes back to the why sort of thing. So yeah, just like and it's not really specific. A bit like kind of the opposite of what Peter was saying. It's not. Haven't found it really specific because I think we're the first brass and wind and stuff like that. So it's not. It's more like of a pedagogical shift, or even like bringing in that word and in knowing that word as I'm vaguely starting to understand what it kind of covers. It's a bit of an umbrella term in a way, isn't it? But yeah, sorry, I rambled again. I did that both times you asked me the question.
Don't worry, we like rambling here. It's all good. Yeah, so Matt and Peter, you both made kind of reference actually to the kind of course content itself, maybe covering the broader pedagogical concepts and theories and ideas. And then obviously that maybe more instrument specific element coming in other ways in the course. And so Peter, I wondered how you found working with your mentor, who is obviously matched to you on an instrument specific basis, what it was like working with someone from another educational program or organization.
Yeah, it was amazing actually. So my mentor was Ollie Mansfield. He's another cello teacher, and he teaches at Trinity Juniors, and I think a few other places in London. But I was able to observe some of his work at Trinity Juniors, and obviously, it was a very different setting than my setting, working in harmony program and in South Leeds. But I stole so many things because he's just such a creative teacher. And I think the really neat thing for me was I was going to him. I had, these meetings with him throughout the year where I was talking to him about advice for modules, and he was so helpful with that. And he was doing observations of my teaching and had some really good suggestions for me, or kind of questions, why do you do it this way and this and that. And I felt like I was getting, more and more of his ideas through that. And then to observe it and see it in action was really amazing, because it was like, wow, this is all of these things that we've been talking about kind of put together in such a creative and fun way. And it was also, I could take those little ideas that he had and I could bring them back to my setting and adapt them slightly, but yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. I'm sorry about the saxophone in the background. I hope it's not too loud.
It's quite nice. It's kind of like
background
lilting music. I love
That's
it.
the right amount. Yeah, it's nice.
Peter, that's lovely. So you were saying that you kind of stole tips and ideas from him, and you were taking these from the course itself as well, obviously. And so now that you're kind of almost a year on from completing the course, I wonder if the things you've learned and the experiences you've had have made you feel more confident taking on leadership responsibilities, specifically within your kind of work.
Yeah, so yes, well, even when I was working at Opera North until pretty recently, I felt really confident to if new teachers came into the organization, I felt really confident with just kind of showing them the ropes and kind of encouraging them to kind of find their own kind of natural teaching style for that work. I just felt very, very at ease with that. And also in just kind of broader discussions within the organization, I felt like I could, I had something to offer to, when we were talking about, CPD conversations and things like that. I just felt like, I had a perspective that I'd really mulled over and worked out and put into practice in my teaching, and so that was really nice for me. And then now, kind of striking out on my own in my own kind of ventures, I feel really confident kind of in my vision as a teacher. And I mean, kind of like Kate was saying, where it's often easy in our profession to kind of be dictated to by the kind of by the customer, as it were. I feel like I have quite a strong kind of opinion and set of values that I can just put forward, and the other things actually kind of work out when you're really clear about your vision as a teacher and really clear about your values as a teacher. All of the other kind of practical things, they sort themselves out gradually. So yeah, it's given me a lot of confidence to take on those roles and just take a risk and see what happens.
That is brilliant to hear, that you're feeling so empowered and at the end of the day, the customer's the young person in front of you, isn't it, that you're working with and teaching. And if you're leading with them in mind, then, as you say, the rest hopefully falls into place. Matt, I know you're still kind of coming to the end of the program itself, but like on this journey, as we say sometimes. But how are you feeling now in terms of your confidence and feeling more empowered perhaps with your teaching? Is that something you're noticing as you move through the program?
I'm definitely looking forward to feeling like Peter. Like it really goes like hugely up and down as you try out new things, which has been obviously a major feature of this year's work, sort of thing. So I feel empowered. Yes, absolutely. Like that is hugely like increased. As for do I feel confident? Like sometimes I do, and you do something that works out, and then like, oh yeah, wicked. I mean, in the long run, it's all going to lead to that sort of thing. And then, but the journey is, it's not necessarily an upward trajectory of confidence, I wouldn't say, but I just think that's a good thing because, like I said before, it's tearing it apart a little bit and examining it, and but yeah, in the long term, I don't think there's any question that I'm going to be a better teacher for it, whatever my confidence level is right now, approaching hand in assignment 3.
Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, how often do we say to you all, it's not like we fully appreciate that you're going to be breaking down and analysing everything you do and then think, oh my goodness, and have all of this wealth of information things and then build it back up in the way that you want to. So don't worry, we're not going to mark you down for assignment 3 because you didn't say you were 100% confident right now with all of your teaching and every setting you're in. That's okay.
Very step comment, thank you.
Lovely, thank you both of you. Yeah, I know there's already been questions in the chat and I'm sure you'll probably have more for Kate and possibly Matt and Peter. So Katrina, shall we move swiftly into the Q&A session with our participants? Shall I read out those questions in the chat and then maybe you can answer or direct someone else to answer?
Yeah, sure, that would be great.
Lovely. Okay, so I think, yeah, we'd all talked up to there about Matt wishing that Kate ran his music service. And then Jen, you said about, oh yeah, can I ask how the QTS element, additional assessment aspect, works? I assume this is outside of the initial year. Yeah, so Katrina, if you want to flesh that out.
Yeah, so as you've rightly pointed out, it isn't part of the year and it's not part of our course. But our partners, BCU, do offer an assessment-only route, which has quite stringent criteria in order to get onto. But it is something that they do, and we can certainly put you in touch with that department of BCU, but it's not part of this programme at all, if that makes sense. Are there any other questions on that? Just
Kate's diving in.
If it's all right for me to just chip in with that, the QTS element, at first I just thought, yeah, they really need to get QTS. I think because QTS positions in a lot of music services anyway, they're like hen's teeth more often than not. And there's also, I think, a growing realisation for us that perhaps QTS is not, what's the word, crucial to a successful music service. So looking at, I'm just going to leave that there, it's kind of looking at what additional value is QTS going to give your service. There are plenty of pay scales and pay ranges available that are equivalent. Obviously, we are, generally a term time only service, but I think if you can kind of take that portion of your brain out, which is always about it's got to be QTS, and think about it in terms of experience and knowledge and what's, and perhaps being reflective within the structure and paying conditions that are within a service, rather than it being, oh no, they've got to be QTS, so we'll try and get them to do that and then they can go into the structure. It's a part of me now, having seen the boys going through this course, is really, should it just be a question of going, and now you're going to have to do this so that you can fit into the established pay scale? Well, why is that? Why are we doing the QTS? What element is it? I'm not saying that there is no value in it at all. Obviously having a qualified teacher status has huge, I've got qualified teacher status, etc. However, having said that, I would say that these three participants, the amount of knowledge and experience that they have, it certainly outweighs the knowledge and experience of some other QTS teachers who, if I'm honest, have done overall since they did their PGCE. So it's that whole dichotomy of a qualification, which is a tangible thing, and knowledge and experience, which are actually more relevant. I would say it's just whether you want to put that cherry on the top. There we go, tick. I've done QTS. Don't need to do anything else now. I know I'm being very contentious, so I'll shut up now.
Why we asked you, Kate. Yeah, Jen, obviously feel free to, if you would like to kind of speak directly, feel free. Yeah.
I'm happy to come in if that's okay. Are you all right if I ask a bit further there? Hi everyone, I'm Jen, Lincolnshire, and one of the reasons that I'm particularly interested, I get everything you're saying, Kate, I agree, but it's around trying to create a really attractive recruitment offer, because we've got, like everybody else, huge recruitment issues. Lincolnshire, as Steph knows, it's not somewhere that people naturally tend to travel through. So we've got huge recruitment issues, and actually the ability to have QTS. I know you did it for existing staff, this particular program, but particularly interested in how this could work as a part of an offer for new staff. So it's a real benefit to attract them into the county. So that's really where I'm coming from, because I get everything you're saying. We do the certificate of music educators. So actually, in terms of pedagogy, sharing, it's there. We have a structure, but I'm particularly interested in this around trying to encourage staff into the county, because it's just so difficult. That's really
I totally know where you're coming from with that, because it was something that we struggled with. And I think one of the other deciding factors here is EDI, very much so, because I think one of the reasons why perhaps we were putting some very talented people off was by saying that you needed to have QTS, or you needed to have, some form of teaching qualification, etc. I think once we started kind of leveling off a little bit and looking at perhaps, some, for example, some extremely experienced workshop leaders who have worked at Music in Action Together, or Music Action Together, one of those companies anyway, which, I mean, the amount of experience that they have got through doing that is amazing, and that's experience that we need, so that it will impact our workforce, obviously. However, it doesn't fit into that nice little characteristic of, have you worked in a primary school? Have you worked in a secondary school? Have you worked in some kind of educational institution per se? It might be that those students are refusing to go to school, or can't go to school, can't access school, but they've been going to those workshops or be coming out their primary settings there. It doesn't mean that they haven't had some experience of working with young people. So I think that kind of led us down, the path of looking at widening our recruitment to other areas where we wouldn't normally publicise those vacancies, and changing the way that we do advertise so that it is a little bit more, I guess, inclusive, which is something that, we're very, very fortunate that we have a council that is always very mindful of EDI, and looking at things like getting adverts done in different languages, which are reflective of the area and the borough and, the region as well. So I think, as soon as, we started looking at perhaps slightly differently, and looking at, who are our students and what skills do they actually need, rather than how are we going to attract more teachers with experience. It's kind of looking at how do we attract people with experience who have done all of this work but might not necessarily be able to tick all of those nice boxes. So there has been some work on our job descriptions and person specs. But so far, I'll tell you, because some of the appointments we made, I'll be honest, we were a bit, is it going to work? I don't know if it's going to work. But, largely they have. And, part of the reason it's been successful is we've learnt an awful lot from them. So I'll give you one example. We have somebody who is a penny whistle expert. She's run the Irish Festival for years and years, and has done lots of ad hoc workshops. She's done educational videos for the Penny Whistle Association in Ireland and things like that. So, the amount of experience that she has of working with young people, it's vast, and it's over many, many, many years. She doesn't have a teaching qualification though, and until this year she hadn't worked in a mainstream setting. So there has been, obviously we had to have all of the mechanisms in place to support her with that. But it's been hugely beneficial, because it means that obviously we've been able to open that out, and now we've got this whole element that we didn't have before, where we're able to meet the need. But anyway, I don't know if that's helpful, but it's not really answering a question, it's just kind of posing more, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I would just add about kind of perhaps the difference between the PGCI and the CME is obviously CME is level 5 and PGCI is level 7, so it's master's level equivalent. And you need a sort of level 6 or equivalent to be able to do the course. And that doesn't necessarily mean an undergrad. We had someone who had done an LRAM, for example, never been to university, who had was absolutely fine on the course and did not struggle with the work, having not already done an undergraduate degree. So I think and there is a huge amount of support as well for students who haven't come from a university background to help with those assignments or help with any kind of associated study skills. So I would just say that it does kind of sit quite neatly in that not quite as a full commitment as a QTS and a bit more than something like a CME, that then actually does kind of give you those master's levels skills.
I think Karen has a question, and then Jen will circle back to your other question that you asked as well after that. That's all right.
So, I mean, I'm looking at this. So I am actually a primary school music lead without QTS, without a PGCE. Okay. But also, I'm a very experienced piano teacher and writer. So, I'm wanting the PGCE just because, I haven't got one. And also, where I want to be with other students, I want to challenge my practice, but I'm just wondering how much of it is very instrumental specific, because I do piano teaching, obviously, and I do a small amount parrying, but most I'm doing, which goes back to what Jen mentioned, is curriculum music teaching. And I am aware around, as Jen has said, there's lots of people in music services now delivering curriculum music. And in fact, our whole class teacher now that I have in, and our violin teacher, I've now got her in nursery, and I'm working on guiding them on putting those curriculum elements in. So there isn't a primary school music PGCE. So if I did a PGCE, I'd have to do a primary one, and I'm never going to teach those other subjects. So I was looking at this as a bit of a hybrid, really, that I could then, but I'm wondering how much, if I was going to be in a room where, a lot of it was sort of instrumental playing, do you know what I'm saying? It's, I play a piano, so I'm like thinking, I've started the clarinet, but,
Can I just say, so the modules examine, you'd use your piano teaching, I think, as a as what you examine on the modules sort of thing. But I feel like I'm thinking more and more about delivering more of what you do, because I think it informs that so much more. The kind of way that it is all set up is to think about your instrumental teaching more like a curriculum anyway. In fact, we've just done
I get that, but that's my sort of expertise. So I've got the 3rd best-selling piano tutor in the whole of the UK. So I'm thinking curriculum development in piano isn't what I need to develop. I'm not saying that there's more for me to learn. Absolutely, there's always more for me to learn. But I'm trying to look at my practice where I feel, do you see what I'm saying?
Kate, you want to jump in? And then I'm sure
I do. I thought I'd put my hand up. I thought I'd put my hand up this time. Yeah, I know what you mean, Karen. And I mean, first of all, just to kind of reassure you, John, for example, I'll refer back to him. He delivers whole school curriculum in two primary schools for 2 days now. Part of the reason is this course, and yeah, because you know it's equipping you with everything that you need from a curricular point of view and also from a development point of view. All of those pedagogies are absolutely sound, obviously, but then what it's also doing is connecting the instrumental element to it, which I would say is actually slightly more authentic in terms of the curriculum itself, because it does say that we are supposed to be teaching them how to sing and how to play an instrument. So it connects those things together, I think, in a slightly more cohesive way, I would say.
Yeah, so I was just saying I would want to look at other instruments other than piano, because I kind of done that to death. Do you know what I mean? I've got loads more to learn. Absolutely.
You might be sorry you said that though, Karen, because you know John said that, and now he does ukulele and samba and all sorts.
Well, I do ukulele, I do recorder. And I've started clarinet because there's a national shortage of clarinet players at the moment. And my understanding is one specialist music school has only got one clarinet in their lower school. So I've started the clarinet because I think, well, actually, you know, so I'm in these primary schools because I'm desperate to get kids playing instruments. And in York, since they got rid of the music service from the council, it's a very unusual model, and it, you know, I'm just trying to, you know, do what I can in my own little bit of the garden. Do you know what I mean? It's all right me writing all these blooming books, but what am I doing in where I live, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm here. And I really welcome the fact being with new teachers that probably are making me look like a dinosaur, but that's great. I'm very happy to be the dinosaur, you know, but I can learn so much from these new teachers. So, but I'm just looking at how much I can use to help my whole class instrumental teaching.
Yeah, I totally get that. And I mean, I think that's been one of the great things for me. I probably should have said this, you know, earlier on, but the majority of all three tutors, I would say, have got at least 50% on their timetable of either whole class or curriculum teaching. I mean, that's the reality of where we are. Is school buy-in for those particular things is very strong. I think, you know, for all three of them as well, they are very keen now. They always used to be, oh, we'll do clarinets in year 4 kind of thing. They're very keen now to kind of work with us on developing a model where we're teaching throughout the key stages. So, you know, we're looking at teaching from nursery to year 6 and looking at that whole academic journey.
Yeah, and that's what I'm developing curriculum from there, and then thinking, right, well, where can I, you know, I'm a very privileged position. I'm a house author for Faber. What music can I get out there in my writing that's really going to help these people? Do you know what I mean? So I have to be at that coalface doing, and, you know, and I'm about to go into another school and, you know, doing from scratch from there. So I just felt that actually having a PGCE, and I don't mind it's instrumental at all, would be great, you know, and it's just whether this is the right course or not.
Yeah, sorry, Steph, you go ahead.
I was just gonna jump in and ask if, I know I'm very aware of time, and we're kind of nearing the end. I just wanted to ask Katrina if you wanted to, because that was basically Jen's question as well before about the curriculum music, if you wanted to just clarify anything there. And then Jen also wanted to just clarify about the bursaries.
Yeah. I think that the thing to say about the kind of instrumental versus curriculum teaching thing is that the course is very much tailored to whatever the student's context they're teaching in is, and the fourth module is the professional study program, which is really outlines the teaching standards, and you're actually able to select based on your setting, which of those things are most relevant to you and areas that you want to develop. So it really is tailored to what you need and what your setting needs. That's where we want to be of help. So I hope that helps a little bit with that. Just on the bursaries. So yeah, so if you are if your service or your hub is serving communities, state funded schools and things like that, you are eligible for the 1,500 subsidized fee. And then there are additional bursaries for if you're working particularly in some of those priority places, as well, for I think it's up to 60% on top of that. Or if you are underrepresented, also you can qualify for a targeted bursary. With the QTS, that is an additional, that would be through BCU rather than through us. So we wouldn't necessarily support with that cost. But I know that, beyond the course, when with our graduate network, there are often small bursaries available to support with further development, further kind of training and things like that. So there may be a way to kind of support through that, but not specifically with that BCU assessment only cost, if that makes sense.
I looked into this quite a bit, the QTS, and you do need to be working in 2 different schools as an unqualified teacher for 2 years. That's what I found out. And once you've done that, you can then do the assessment only at 12 weeks. And the lowest price I found was 2.5K. So that's just what I found out.
Yeah, Jan, like I said, I can email you over like what we tend to direct our students to when they ask this question, if that's helpful. Yeah, I'll do that after this. Perfect.